Have you ever wondered why some people do not need to rely on recipes when they cook? It's because they understand these 10 fundamental cooking techniques. Learn these, and I promise you, you will not need to rely on a recipe any longer. I've worked at some of the best restaurants in the world. I have followed and I've even created hundreds of different recipes. This video is for the home cook who's glued to their recipe book and wants to be a lot more flexible in the kitchen. If you have a couple things in your fridge you don't know what to do with, pick a technique, get the ingredient, and have some fun. The first cooking technique that I want to talk about is poaching. Poaching is cooking in liquid, okay? Typically water, but it can also be, it can be stock, it can be court bouillon, which is stock with aromatic vegetables inside of it. And what you're doing when you're poaching is you're cooking something completely submerged in that liquid. So you're giving it really gentle, humid, moist heat. Normally not boiling, it's just below simmering. It's probably around about 75, 80 degrees. Very gentle heat. When you're poaching something, you have equal heat coming from all around the ingredient. If there's aromatics in that water or that broth or that liquid, they're gently just going inside of that ingredient from all angles. Poaching works great for things like, obviously, poached egg, okay? Poaching fish. You can poach vegetables. It's also a lean way to cook something because you're not adding any fat, you're not adding any oil. For me, it's useful for things that you really want to highlight the essence of that ingredient, right? You're not trying to add so much flavor. You kind of want to eat something in its natural essence, all right? That's for me what poaching is great for. Very much a simmer. And also into that poaching category, I'm gonna put sous vide, poaching / sous vide. Because when you're cooking something sous vide, all you're doing is poaching it, but you're poaching it in a bag. So you're sucking all the air out of the bag. You have your ingredient in a vacuum packed bag that then goes into water. Now, when you have a circulator, when you cook something sous vide, typically it's around 60 to 65 degrees Celsius. In a vacuum packed bag, a piece of meat, a piece of fish with fat, normally butter, beef tallow, dropping that into that liquid. And all it's doing is giving a very gentle heat distribution to that ingredient, very soft. But cooking it sous vide is just giving you a lot more control. Cook sous vide in the restaurants just because it's more accurate, it's more consistent. You know, you cook, for example, short rib in the restaurant for 48 hours at 59, 60 degrees Celsius. And what you end up with is a really pink short rib, but it's braised and falling apart. If you have any questions about sous vide cooking, please let me know in the comments, send me a direct message. I'd love to help you guys out. On to the next one. Sautéing. Sautéing is cooking something in a pan with a very small amount of oil on high heat, generally. Moving the pan, moving the ingredient a lot, getting caramelization all along the outside of the ingredient, agitating it, and you're cooking something hot and fast, all right? But you're not submerging it in oil. In Monaco, and I worked for Alain Ducasse at Louis Quinze, you know, you would be sautéing vegetables and they would take absorbent paper and any extra oil in the pan, they would clean the oil off the bottom of the pan so there's not too much excess oil just sitting there turning dark, okay? There should just be a little bit of oil in between the ingredient and the pan to help with that heat distribution. Out of the pan quick, that's sautéing, okay? Deep frying, shallow frying. Deep frying obviously is cooking an ingredient completely submerged in oil. Deep frying typically goes from anywhere between 300 degrees Fahrenheit to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. 300 degrees Fahrenheit would be considered a low temperature fry, 400 would be a high temperature fry. Most commercial deep fryers sit around 350 to 375 degrees. Pretty self-explanatory. You're dropping in an ingredient in oil and it's completely submerged in oil. The heat distribution is completely the same because the temperature is controlled, and all it is just that fat just attacking that ingredient from the outside, caramelizing the protein and all that stuff from the outside, developing really delicious flavor. Obviously, a lot of things that come out of a deep fryer are delicious. Biggest things that you need to focus on when you're deep frying something, the oil temperature. I'd say that's the biggest thing that you need to focus on. Too hot and the ingredient's gonna burn right away. Too cold and the ingredient's just gonna soak up that oil. For example, you're cooking something like French fries and you're triple cooking them or twice cooking them. You cook them the first time at a low temperature, around 300 degrees, cool them down, and then the second time you cook them at a high temperature at 375 degrees, allows for a crispier French fry in the end. Think about why you're frying something. What are you trying to achieve by frying something? Is it something like a whole turkey? Are you trying to fry a whole turkey in your backyard for some sort of crazy holiday that you're celebrating? If that's the case, 400 degree oil isn't gonna do it because you're trying to cook a 30-pound turkey, and if the oil's too hot, it's not gonna work. So whenever you're deep frying something, think about why, how much heat you want, and make sure you're controlling the temperature. Shallow frying, similar idea, just not fully submerged in oil. Again, thing that's really important is the temperature, just like deep frying. The other thing is whenever you're taking something out of the fryer, deep or shallow, make sure you have a rack or absorbent paper underneath that ingredient so all that excess oil can be drained. Also, make sure you change the oil regularly if you have a deep fryer. Deep fryer oil gets really dark, really black, and it starts to taste really bitter. So make sure as soon as that oil starts to change color, You switch it out. Very important. Grilling, barbecuing, Texas barbecue, the smokers, your traditional charcoal barbecue. That's my favorite way to do it. You got your gas barbecue, cast iron griddle pans you can use. There's a lot of different ways that you can grill, meat, vegetables. Grilling gives a very nice smoky flavor. You again, watch the temperature of your fire. How big is the thing that you're cooking? If the thing that you're cooking is really big, heat doesn't need to be so high because you need to cook it for longer. You want to kind of choose your heat based on the size of your ingredient, okay? Other thing, you're cooking something like vegetables on a grill. Give them a nice season, salt, pepper, olive oil. Get that grill nice and clean. Take a towel, rub it all over the grates, get it nice and shiny, and get your ingredients on there and cook them very accurately with hot, fast heat. I'm a big supporter of charcoal grills. Get a charcoal grill, buy a bag of charcoal. It takes 20 minutes to heat up. A little bit more meat than you think you need, a little bit more vegetables than you think you need, and keep it in the fridge and have leftovers. Something that I used to do every week when I was living in London. I had a little fire escape outside my bedroom window, and I bought a little charcoal grill, and I used to be able to sit on my bed and grill and charcoal grill out the window. I would recommend you get yourself a charcoal grill and give it a try. The next cooking technique that you need to learn, baking, roasting, and broiling, all happen in the oven. Baking and roasting, I would say, is pretty much the same thing. Oven temperature, 350, 375, and you're just putting in something in there to bake. All that dry heat is coming. If you're convection baking, there's a fan in your oven, and that fan is blowing that 350 degree air all over your oven, and you're getting that sort of wind, hot air all around the ingredient. It's really good for even caramelization and cooking things that have some size on them, right? Like a whole chicken or a whole roast piece of meat, something like that. And then obviously a cake. Equal. Broiling, on the other hand, is a lot of heat coming from the top down. You gotta be careful with broiling. You turn your broiler on and it's very hot, very fast. Broiling's great for caramelizing things, making like gratinated dishes, right? And getting that color on the top. Really be careful when you're broiling that you just keep an eye on your oven, turn your light on, watch what you're doing. Really don't go far from the oven because you'll be surprised on how quickly things caramelize and turn. We use broiling in restaurants a lot where we have something called a salamander. And what that is just exactly that heat coming from the top down. We use it a lot for heating up ingredients last minute, just sort of reheating things really quickly, but really what it is heat coming from just the top down at a very high rate. Okay, so be careful and watch the ingredient that you have in the oven on broil. The next cooking technique is boiling. Boiling is self-explanatory. Cooking pasta, cooking green vegetables. Make sure the water is hot. Make sure it's salted, seasoned, and you're cooking everything quickly. You don't want to cook it slow. You want to cook green vegetables quickly. You want to keep all that fresh, vibrant flavor in that vegetable. Use a lid to keep that temperature nice and hot. And if you're cooling something down after, make sure you get it into ice water right away. Braising is cooking something slowly in liquid. Braising applies to a lot of joints of meat that are tougher, not like a tenderloin or a ribeye or a strip loin or anything like that. Most of the time it's, braising joints from the shoulder, from the butt, things that use a lot more muscle that need more time to break down. We cook them braising. Short ribs. Sear the outside, cook it low and slow. And then getting into a low temperature oven, 275, 300 with a bit of liquid, bit of wine, bit of stock, a bit of vinegar, and just let it bubble. Covered, completely covered. That steam will come from the bottom, come up and hit that tin foil on the top, come back down and hit that ingredient. And now that ingredient's gonna cook in this moist, slow heat. Over a long period of time, that heat's gonna break down this ingredient. It's gonna make it soft and a lot more pleasurable to eat. It's gonna be less chewy, all right? So that is braising. Searing. Searing is cooking something very hot in a pan very quickly. Okay, searing a steak. You're cooking it 2 minutes on one side, 2 minutes on the other side. Searing it very hot, very fast, with a small amount of oil, a very quick transfer in heat, and therefore beautiful texture and beautiful flavor on the ingredient that you're searing. Okay, very important when you're searing something, you keep that temperature of the pan high. Use a heavy pan, use a heavy cast iron pan or a heavy frying pan that's gonna allow that pan to stay hot after you put that ingredient in there. Next cooking technique, confit. Confit is cooking something in fat. Confit is basically like poaching, but you're cooking it either it's in its own fat or a fat. What confit is good for is cooking things that could be lean or that are fatty and that you just want a gentle heat distribution, a very pleasurable mouthfeel after when it comes out. Obviously, you've probably heard of something called duck confit. Duck confit is when you cook duck legs in duck fat, right? So you're cooking duck legs low and slow. A lot of times people cure them for an hour, rinse off the salt, and then they cook them low and slow in duck fat. You can confit fish, you can confit meat, vegetables, you can confit anything. Anytime you're completely submerging something in a low temperature fat, that's confit. Make sure that the temperature of the fat is not too hot. You're just poaching it in the fat. And make sure you're seasoning that ingredient a little bit before and letting it sit with that seasoning. Let that salt sort of soak into that ingredient a little bit before you drop it in so it doesn't rinse it off right away. The next cooking technique that you need to understand is steaming. Steaming is a very useful tool. I love cooking fish. When I was working as a private chef in the south of France for a family, they had a steamer in their kitchen. One of his favorite dishes that he liked to eat was a whole steamed sea bass with soy sauce and chilies and ginger, and it was absolutely delicious. Also, there's another one that we did with tomato and carrot and parsley and fresh coriander. Just a little bit of water in the bottom of the steamer and cling film over the top. It's shocking how delicious and simple a steamed ingredient is. It's really just very hot, very fast heat. And if you've ever had a steam burn on your hand, you know what I'm talking about, because just the way that steam attaches to you, it's very quick. So to keep things really fresh and clean tasting, steaming is a great technique. Okay, if you don't actually have a steamer, that's fine. You can get sort of like a colander basket that fits inside of a pot. And in the bottom of the pot, you can put water and put the lid on top, and you've got yourself a little steamer. It's great for cooking vegetables, really vibrant green vegetables. You know, I would recommend trying to cook fish like that as well. Again, make sure you season the fish a little bit beforehand, let that flavor soak in, and enjoy yourself some lean, delicious protein. If this video makes you want to put on an apron and get in the kitchen, let me know in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button and follow for more.